This article from the New York Times from Monday, June 5th, 1972, it's from a thread of letters to the editor that I'm going to go through in a separate video. But I just want to point out here in subway bylines, it reads, to the editor, if Roberto of 103rd and James of 138th had prospects of someday being asked to write for the Times or even to read it, they surely would not emblazon their names so conspicuously on walls where they are bound to shatter cultivated sensibilities. Now, if you look down at the bottom of that paragraph, it says editorial, nuisance in Technicolor, May 26th. I'm going to do a thorough job on that thread in the New York Times. But what I'm doing right now is showing 100% proof that in 1972, underneath the number one train on Broadway, these individuals were caught writing their names, and look at the style that these kids are using. It is the long structured signature and street number tag style. So what we have here is photographic proof of this tag style showing up as far back as, 1965. We have photographs of those styles, which I will show you. They're going to come up in a minute on your screen, and you will see Papo of 87th Street. You will see Al, the killer of 115. You will see Jose of 109. And you will see Foxy of 100th Street. So these tag styles not only were around since the early 60s, and I just want to let folks know, the very first photographs of signatures and street numbers date back to 1959, when I believe they were placed on the wall, because it definitely looks like they went through at least one New York City winter, and then they were photographed in the summer of 1960. So it's really not pushing it to say that those tags were up on the wall, 10 months earlier. I haven't shown anybody those pictures yet, because those are very special pictures and they will come out at the right time. But I want to talk about the tag structure of signatures and street numbers. Those early tags from 1959 in Italian Harlem read as follows: Leo 115 ST, David 115 ST, and Ray 109. And then we also see Bobby of 110, but he tried too hard to go too big with his tag. It's like 5 times the size of the other 3 guys, and he ran out of paint, because that is a time period that it's so old with signatures and street numbers that house paint was used. So I want you to observe on the photographs that are coming up that Foxy of 100th Street is also done in white house paint. But the tags by Al of 115, the tag by Papo of 87th Street, and the tag of Jose of 109 are aerosol tags. At the very beginning of New York City's writers' movement, and they all predate anything that could have been going on in Philadelphia, because the West Philly guys hadn't started writing on the walls yet. The North Philly guys hadn't started writing on the walls yet. Now the gangs in Philadelphia used aerosol, and Bobby Beck, way back in 1959, used aerosol. Let's just focus on that year 1959 for a minute. It's very interesting, right? So, What my point is that not only had the kids in New York City progressed to moving on to using aerosol and marking the streets with spray paint cans at that point, that's because earlier on, we have 1961 photographs of signatures and street numbers in the extended form in magic marker. Then we have it again in 1963 in magic marker. And then we have what I mentioned, the Foxy of 100th Street. That tag is from 1965, and it was photographed by Don Hogan Charles, who was a staff photographer for the New York Times, and he took that photograph in 1966. Now, when we look at that photograph, I just want everybody to remember that that is actually on the corner of East 100th Street and Park Avenue. It's the old bus depot. So if you take a good look at where the folks are hanging out with the card table, you can see that that's not an apartment building. That's the old bus terminal. And it's now still a bus terminal. I believe Tuskegee is the name of that bus terminal. So they tore down the old one. They put a new one up. But please, do not judge what kids used as far as what they were going to, what they were going to use to get up on the wall. I don't care if it's marker. I don't care if it's house paint. I don't care if it's spray paint. As long as they are practicing signatures and street numbers, that's the beginning of our movement in New York City. But if people want to nitpick, we got kids practicing signatures and street numbers in aerosol long before Philadelphia. Literally years before we will see Cool Earl, the Cool Klepto Kid, and Chewy begin to write on the walls of Philadelphia and start their citywide movement. And then next in North Philadelphia will come Dr. Cool #1 and Titty Peace Sign. So I just think it's very interesting that this information has been overlooked for so long. I can't be the greatest researcher in the world now, can I? Somebody had to come across this stuff. Some of these photos I found on the internet. I just think it's something to think about of why this information possibly was buried for so long. I personally think what happened was historians and researchers were not aware of names, graffiti, and culture with the date 1969. But that can't be it, because it's the same information that we find in Golden Boy as Anthony Cool. And a matter of fact, there's even a little bit more information in Golden Boy as Anthony Cool. That's when we find out that Johnny of 93, a.k.a. Bolita as Johnny Cool, the research subject that Herbert Cole used for his study, we find out in Golden Boy that he lived on the west side. And that's not in the Names, Graffiti, and Culture article. So we're even given more information. And what that shows is, it shows how there was a migration from East Harlem all the way across to the west side. And once it hit the west side, we know what happened. So I can't really be sure why this was not, at the forefront, and why this was not known to be the seminal piece of work by everybody who researches this particular art form. But we don't have to worry anymore, because I've solved that problem for everybody. So why has the reporting always been that Philadelphia has had a movement before New York City? I have no idea. But the testimony from Cool Earl and the Klepto Kid clearly states that they did not start in 1967 with bombing missions And it took a very long time, 3 years and 8 months, before they'd be mentioned in the newspapers. And again, I want you to understand, they only went out and wrote where they moved around in that particular day or that particular afternoon. They were dedicated to the point where they carried a marker and cans of spray paint at one point in time, but they both told me it was 1967 and 1968. They did not go out on organized bombing missions. That's not until 1970 when they start to meet with SEPTA and their names are starting to be noticed just at the level at what they were doing, which was not bombing missions. It was like Zorro. They went out for the day. They might have done a little boosting. They might have gone to a fast food joint or something. And as they moved through the city on their little expedition, they would leave a trail of their names. But these were not organized bombing missions. So as I'm really getting to the bottom of all this, it's for everybody to understand. Nobody has come close to putting together this information as I have up until this point. And I have so much more proof. There's going to be so much more newspaper articles. There's going to be more testimonies from both cities. So I just want everybody to understand. It's not what you always thought. New York City definitely had a writers' movement first. And Philadelphia had a writers' movement that came second. But New York did not influence them. Just like Cornbread sent nothing to New York. I mean, he sent absolutely nothing to us. So this is just something for everybody to think about. I hope you enjoy the newspaper articles that I come across, because like I said, at this point in time, the other historians are going to have to play catch up. See you on the next video.